In the distant future, humanity had reached out to the stars, discovering new worlds and cultures. One such world was known as Qalithar, a vibrant and treacherous death world. Its ecology was hostile, with deadly creatures and unpredictable weather, making it both a paradise and a nightmare. The planet was home to the Qalitharians, a unique species that had evolved to thrive in its harsh environment. Ambassador Zyla, the chief diplomat of the Qalitharians, stood on a cliff overlooking a lush valley dotted with bioluminescent plants that glowed eerily under the planet's 3 moons. Zyla was an unusual figure, with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions and a laid-back demeanor that contrasted sharply with the seriousness of their role. They wore flip-flops, a choice that baffled many, but to Zyla, it symbolized comfort and adaptability. Meanwhile, on the human side, Captain Riley Ward prepared for the impending diplomatic mission. A veteran of countless interstellar negotiations, Riley was no-nonsense, with a reputation for getting things done. She was used to the rigid protocols of human diplomacy, where formality and discipline were paramount. As she suited up in her military attire, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of concern about how her mission would unfold on such a dangerous world. The two sides met on a neutral ground, a floating platform above a churning sea of phosphorescent waves. The air was thick with tension as Riley and her team arrived, their spacecraft hovering above the platform. The Qalitharian delegation awaited them, with Zyla at the forefront, nonchalantly flipping a small stone between their fingers, their bright-colored flip-flops contrasting sharply with the formal attire of the human diplomats. As the meeting began, Riley introduced herself and laid out the purpose of their visit: to negotiate a peace treaty over the resource disputes that had threatened to ignite a war between their species. However, Zyla's casual attitude and attire struck Riley as inappropriate for such a serious matter. "We are here to discuss the future of our worlds," Riley said, her voice firm. "It is vital we maintain decorum." Zyla smiled, their skin shifting to a soothing shade of blue. But you see, Captain, decorum is relative. In our culture, being too rigid can lead to misunderstandings. Flexibility is key to survival here." They gestured to their flip-flops. "These are my choice for the terrain, allowing me to move freely. Comfort aids clarity of thought." Riley's brow furrowed. "We must establish mutual respect and understanding. If we're to avoid war, we need to be serious." As she spoke, she noticed Counselor Thren, an elder Qalitharian, observing them with skepticism. Thren's age showed in their mottled skin, and their expression was a mix of caution and distrust. Despite their differences, the negotiations continued. But as they exchanged proposals and terms, misunderstandings escalated. Riley's attempts to maintain order clashed with Zyla's laid-back approach. At one point, Zyla leaned back against the railing of the platform, relaxing as they spoke, while Riley stood rigid, arms crossed, exuding authority. Then, a loud roar echoed from below. A massive creature, a thraxx, emerged from the sea, its scales shimmering with deadly intent. The ground shook as it lunged toward the platform, sending everyone scrambling. Zyla instinctively leaped into action, their flip-flops allowing for agile movement as they led the group away from the edge. Riley, caught off guard, quickly followed, her military training kicking in. "Form a perimeter," she shouted, positioning her team between the creature and Zyla. But the thraxx was powerful, crashing through the platform, causing it to tremble precariously. As chaos erupted, Zyla grabbed Riley's arm, pulling her toward a narrow corridor leading to the emergency escape pods. "We need to move now," Zyla urged, urgency in their voice. Riley hesitated, torn between her instinct to protect her team and the pressing need to escape. "Stay close," Riley yelled as she maneuvered around the debris. With Zyla leading the way, they ducked and weaved through the rubble, their respective teams falling in behind them. The thraxx's roar reverberated through the air as it clawed at the platform, sending splinters flying. In the narrow corridor, Zyla turned to Riley, their expression shifting to a deep shade of purple, a color of concern. "You must trust me. I know how to navigate this terrain better than anyone." The gravity of the situation hung heavy between them, but Riley found herself reluctantly acknowledging Zyla's expertise. "Okay," Riley said, her voice steady. "Lead the way." Together, they rushed through the labyrinth of corridors, dodging the creature's attempts to break through. Zyla's flip-flops, far from being a hindrance, became an asset as they deftly maneuvered around obstacles, while Riley's military training ensured her team stayed focused. Finally, they reached an emergency exit, a hatch that led to a small escape pod. "In here," Zyla shouted, ushering everyone inside. The thraxx was close behind, its massive form crashing against the walls as they sealed the hatch just in time. Inside the pod, the atmosphere was tense. The sound of the thraxx pounding against the exterior echoed in their ears. Riley took a moment to catch her breath, feeling the weight of the situation settle in. "We need to regroup and come up with a plan," she said, turning to Zyla. "Agreed," Zyla replied, their color shifting to a calming green. "But first, we must assess our losses. We cannot negotiate if we're at war." As the pod launched into the air, they ascended above the chaos, giving Riley a chance to see the planet from above. The vibrant landscape was a stark contrast to the turmoil below. "We need to establish a truce," Riley said, determination in her voice. "If we can work together, we can face this threat." Zyla nodded, their expression serious. "You're right, but we must also find common ground. Our people have always survived by being adaptable, not just militarily, but culturally. Your people must learn to embrace that flexibility." With the pod landing safely at a secure facility, Riley and Zyla began to forge a new path forward. They met with their teams to assess the damage and strategize how to confront the thraxx threat. Working side by side, they discussed strategies, incorporating both their cultures' strengths. As they collaborated, Riley began to understand Zyla's perspective. They introduced her to the concept of adaptability, explaining how their people thrived by embracing the unexpected. "In the face of danger, we find new solutions. Rigidity leads to failure," Zyla explained, their flip-flops symbolizing their open-mindedness. Days turned into weeks as they trained together, combining military tactics with Qalitharian adaptability. Riley found herself wearing lighter clothing, even experimenting with flip-flops, which made her feel more connected to Zyla's world. The divide between their cultures began to blur as they found common ground. Then came the day of the confrontation with the thraxx. Together, they devised a plan that merged their tactics. Riley's team set traps and used their technology to distract the creature, while Zyla's people employed their knowledge of the terrain to navigate the chaos. As the battle unfolded, Zyla's flip-flops carried them swiftly through the chaos. Riley and her team fought bravely, drawing upon their training and newfound understanding of Qalitharian tactics. The thraxx, faced with a united front, began to falter. With a final coordinated strike, they managed to subdue the creature, sending it retreating back into the sea. Exhausted but victorious, both sides gathered to celebrate their hard-won alliance. The tension that had once permeated their negotiations was replaced with a sense of camaraderie. In the aftermath, Riley and Zyla stood together, overlooking the sunset over the vibrant landscape. "We did it," Riley said, a smile breaking through her usual stern demeanor. "We united our people." Zyla's skin shifted to a radiant gold, a sign of joy. "And we've only just begun. Our cultures can learn so much from each other." As they exchanged stories, laughter filled the air. The success of their mission not only forged a treaty, but also laid the groundwork for a deeper understanding between their species. Zyla's flip-flops became a symbol of their newfound alliance, representing the importance of adaptability and cultural exchange. Riley realized that sometimes the most profound connections were forged not in formalities, but in the moments of vulnerability and flexibility. The death world had taught them both valuable lessons about strength, trust, and the beauty of embracing differences. With a sense of hope, they began to plan for future collaborations, envisioning a shared future that celebrated their unique cultures. The stars above twinkled brightly, a reminder that even in the vastness of the universe, understanding and respect could bridge the gaps between worlds.